World today. I got to hit the OK, so it gets off my screen. Got it. So would you agree with me that the pace of change is pretty fast in the world today? And I think when I ask people that, they generally say, yes, it's hard on the screen. I get to see like two people. But here's the thing. The pace of change today in your life will be the slowest it'll be for the rest of your life. In other words, it gets faster and faster. It's not going to slow down. And it's just going to get faster. And so what does that mean to us? Well, there's a lot of things that happen. And one of the things I think you're probably experiencing is as somebody who leads a group of people focused on early childhood and health and education, you deal all the time with wanting to continue to do what you're doing really well, but at the same time, experiencing a sense that some people are just saying, let's just get back to doing what we used to do. And then there's other people that say, we need to change. And so you end up experiencing this tug of war between continuity and change. And what we're doing, and the work I do is I work with school districts, departments of ed, do a lot of work in England as well, but I work on the idea of like, how do we balance this work? How do you as a leader stabilize what's going on in your system and at the same time, make it future focused and sustaining a balance? And as you can see from that idea of being on a tightrope, I think many of you have felt like you've been on a tightrope and you've been pushed off a lot lately too. You got to get back on, and you're balancing balancing how you go forward. But let me share something that's really important. And this is one of my favorite cartoons. Oh crap, was that today? You know, just think about it. See, we can't build the future by perfecting the past, right? We're all leaders of learning, and we all need to be future focused. And what does that really mean? And how do you do that in your work while you at the same time keep your system going? That's one of the challenges you face. And so I like to ask leadership people, and these are slides that I think you can use, you can talk about, but you know, think about that. Do you have meetings and discussions with your folks where you sit down and you say, what is the future of early learning, right? What is it? What are we expecting in the future? What will the future be like for early learning? Or what will the future look like for our children? Do you have those conversations? Because you have to reflect on what you're doing and saying, we need to educate these kids, and we need to get them ready for the lives they're going to lead in the world they're going to live in. And what kind of changes are you curious about? You should talk about that. Too many times, all we're doing is having meetings about what we've done and how do we make what we're doing a little bit better. That's not about being future focused. And why is the future even important? Well, I think the future is pretty significantly important. And then what is no longer a fit in our system? What are the things we're doing that no longer actually are important or shouldn't be doing? Because we never seem to stop doing some things and start doing others. All we seem to do is add things to businesses, add to the work that we do. And what in your system should you keep and improve? What are the important things? So it's easy for me to throw these questions out to you, but I want you to think about this. In your training, did you ever learn about being a future-focused leader? Did you ever take anything that said, because here's what we generally do. We look back to what we did last year and we say, how do we get better? And we don't really look forward and saying, what do our kids need to be successful in the future? What are the things we need to do for them? Because we're so used to looking back and improving, looking at our data. How do we get our data a little better next year? I think you all know a lot about looking at data and saying, how do we improve that 1 point? And you see, that's what I call being forward focused, not future focused. And that's where I think you're going to find that as I talk with you today, you're spending a lot of time trying to improve things in the past and not look to the future. And one of the things I think that's really important for us to understand is that the hardest part of change is not accepting new ideas. A lot of people love new ideas. They do. Here's the problem: letting go of the old ideas. That's where the biggest challenge is. And our biggest challenge, quite frankly, as I've said to many people, is the status quo. So as a leader in this work, in today's world, is there a choice for our leaders? I mean, here's the choice, right? Do you want to be the Flintstones? I think all of you know the Flintstones. Or do you want to be the Jetsons? right? And if you think about the Jetsons, and if you look at that slide, I want to tell you something about the future. The future is always present. It's just not evenly distributed. When you look at that slide, do you know when the Flintstone cartoons went on, when they started to become live? This was in 1962. We did not have the internet. We did not have all of what you see in this. So somebody in 1962 saw ahead to the future. And the point that I want to share with you today is that you don't have a choice of being the Flintstones or the Jetsons. It's not an either or in this world. You have to do both. But we're really good at one end of this and we're not good at the other end of it. And that's what's causing a lot of stress in our systems. You see, here's the thing. Unless you learn something new, you keep analyzing things that are before you the same way. I want you to think about that for a second. Unless you learn something new, you keep analyzing things the same way you always have. And here's the challenge. The challenge is this. When you hear things about the future, most statements about the future seem ridiculous at first. So let me give you a test. Everybody that's out there, I want you to be honest about yourself, honest about this in your own head. When you first heard about Netflix, did you think like, who would ever watch videos on a computer, right? Because you were going to Blockbuster and buying and picking up those VHS slides, decks. The first time you heard about Amazon, did you really think about buying things online? No, I can buy things in a store. It's a stupid idea. Or one that somebody who travels about 100,000 miles a year, Airbnb. Why would I want to stay in someone else's house? That's a stupid idea. Well, these are all multi-billion-dollar businesses now. But when you first heard about them, you were probably thinking, oh my goodness. And the one that I always talk about is Uber, because here's the point. Uber, getting into someone else's car. We tell our kids, don't ever get in the car with somebody you don't know. That's the point about the future. It seems ridiculous to us. And here's the reason why. I'm going to show you a video. There's no sound in this video. I'd just like you to watch your screen. And if you watch your screen, you're going to see a mask. And it's a mask of an old actor named Charlie Chaplin. But the mask is the thing I want you to watch. Because watch, as this mask turns around, you're going to see something interesting. There's no trick to this, but something unusual is going to occur. And as you can see, when that mask gets around to one side, the nose sticks out, the cheek sticks out. You get to look at it, and all of a sudden, it looks not like a mask, but like a person. And I'm going to let it come around one more time, because then I want to give you an example of why this is happening. Because this is interesting, and this is why sometimes we have trouble with ideas about the future. So here comes that mask again. It is a real mask. It's just there, but look at what happens. The nose sticks out. It's not, you're seeing it in a very unusual way. And one of the things why this occurs is because of this. Your brain interprets what you see, and your brain looks at faces all day long. And when your brain looks at a face, the nose sticks out. So when your brain sees this, it says, that's not how faces look, and it makes you see it a different way. And what I want you to understand as an administrator, as a leader, that every time a new idea comes in front of you, you solve it, your brain solves it with what it knows. Now that's important to understand, because really in life, our brain is what we fight with at times when somebody comes up with an idea. Now, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you, what are your thoughts about this? Now, the next video I'm going to show you, I'm just going to let it play. You will hear a sound. This is something that they're using in China right now in some classes. Now, these aren't early childhood classes, but I just want you to look at it. This is pretty bizarre, but I think your brain's going to have a little challenge with this idea.
For this 5th grade class, the day begins with putting on a brain wave sensing gadget. Students then practice meditating. The device is made in China and has 3 electrodes, 2 behind the ears and 1 on the forehead. These sensors pick up electrical signals sent by neurons in the brain. The neural data is then sent in real time to the teacher's computer. So while students are solving math problems, a teacher can quickly find out who's paying attention and who's not. A report is then generated that shows how well the class was paying attention. It even details each student's concentration level at 10-minute intervals. It's then sent to a chat group for parents.
就是他可以看
Now, isn't that bizarre? Just think about that. I think it's ridiculous. Okay, it's my brain saying, why would this ever happen? I don't know what's going to happen with that thought. But what I want you to understand is the things about the future are interesting and they challenge our brain. And I want you to come out of this section of my talk by just understanding that until you learn new things, your brain just looks at it with the old mindset. And that's an important aspect as you move into what this world is like today. And the world that I talk about today, as I indicated, second topic, we're living in what's called a VUCA H world. Now, this VUCA world, VUCA H, it was a term established by the military. And military established it because all of a sudden they used to fight people and design attacks and things on people that had uniforms. And the world changed and they started fighting. They didn't know who their enemy was. Things changed. They basically declared it's a VUCA world. And they talk about it as it's a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. And the H they just recently added to it, it's hyperconnected. What do we mean by all this? Well, look, isn't it the rate of change is incredibly quick. There's growing instability and unpredictability because of that. There's complexity because many things that we always thought were simple to the people, all of a sudden we see lots of diverse opinions, and it's ambiguous. It's difficult to understand why things happen. And the hyperconnected piece is this. I mean, you can just see it happening in a school, in a regular, let's say a K-12 school. Teacher goes to point to the board and all of a sudden hits a kid in the head with their finger as they turn around to point. And somebody takes a picture and it's on the internet. And before that teacher can say, I apologize, somebody's posted it on the internet and parents are calling. That's the world today. It's very, very unpredictable, very complex. And this requires a really different kind of leadership. And that's what I want to talk to you about, the different kind of leadership that we need in the world. Because success, we used to think it looked like this, it looks like this. Now, as leaders, this is something I think you all need to understand and think about, that in this world that's so complex, this VUCA world, you have to, as a leader, be thinking of two different kinds of performance in your systems. You have to deal with what we call the tactical side and the adaptive side. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So tactical side is about operating excellence, best practices, the things we know that work, right? These are the things, what you want to focus on is doing what you already do even better. And at the same time, as a leader, you need to be doing this. You need to invent a different future for your learners, for your program. Look at new ideas and things like that. Now, pre-COVID, I work with lots of districts around the country. I work in the early childhood environment. I work in the college environment. I can tell you that I used to tell people, spend 80% of your time on this kind of stuff, doing what you're already doing it better, and spend 20% of your time on this. But post-COVID, it looks like this. The pace of change has caused us to really think we should be improving what we're currently doing, but we should be spending time on what kind of future should these kids be experiencing in learning? What kind of experience do we want to give these kids? And so I prepared for you a couple of thoughts about this. And I refer to this as VUCA 2, and it's how do you manage volatility? Well, here's the thing. Volatility is managed by vision. And if you're leading an organization, if you're leading an early childhood program, leaders have to be really clear about where their organization is going and what it's all about. You need to have a really specific and clear vision of where you want to go. But here's the rule you need to understand in the world today. The best leadership advice I can give you is be very clear about where you're going, but be very flexible about how you're going to get there. So avoid certainty, but seek clarity. What do I mean by that? You know, you may have a vision of what you want to do in your center, but things could almost change overnight. So be clear about where you're going, but be very, don't be so certain about how you're going to get there. When you say something like within the next 6 weeks or the next year, we're going to be able to do this. I'd say this is where we're going. We're not sure when we're going to get there. And that's because of the world we're living in. And so you really be clear about where you're going, but be very flexible about how you're going to get there. Second is uncertainty is managed by understanding. And so for all of you that think this through, right? When you have a good vision of your organization, then look at the strengths of your organization. What are the strengths of your group, of the people that you work with, and design strategies to maximize those strengths. Don't look for the weaknesses all the time. Look at the strengths and say, how do we build on our strength? Those of you in the world of football, the famous coach Bill Belichick always says, he looks at the team's strengths and how do we build on our strengths? That's what you need to do. You need to build on have a clear vision and build on your strengths. Complexity is managed by courage. This is where I love the bold theme. When Deb was talking about the bold theme of this leadership, I'm going to try to share some additional strategies with you. I'm going to give you actually some ways to operationalize this. But the point is this: complexity is managed by courage. So think about it this way. All right, leaders need courage. But if you have courage and you have a very clear vision and you know the strengths of the people in your system, what are the strengths of your program? Have a vision, what are the strengths of your program? You can take bold action because you minimize and you reduce risk because you have a clear vision and you know the strengths of your system. That's where boldness comes in. You've got to be bold. And ambiguity is managed by agility. Look, I'm going to just be somewhat clear, I hope, understanding about this, which is this. Leaders need to be flexible, and we need to be able to move much faster than we ever have in the past. And when I talk to K-12 system, look, they're archaic, right? I talk to universities, they're archaic. But we have got to understand that we have to be more agile and be able to make decisions more quickly. So I often ask groups this: do you have a policy when people have an innovative idea? Do you have a policy to help them implement an innovative idea? We have rules and regulations for everything, but do we have rules and regulations about when somebody has a really good idea, how we implement it? That's something that you need to think about. And why do you need to think about that? Because look, action by leaders matters more than ever before. And just because the future is uncertain, it doesn't mean you can't influence it. You have got to be thinking about influencing it. And as a strategy, you have to think about this nexus that I was sharing with you about the need to be tactical and adaptive, right? And the way we think through tactical and adaptive is I want you to understand the role of best practices and what we call next practices. Those things that we need to start thinking about. So just think about this. So generally in a business, so you're with your center, you're at your center. This is your center. And you're meeting with all your key employees and you're trying to solve and improve the center. And what happens is somebody has an idea. This is their idea, right? Here's what we generally do. We generally take our system and we think about our system and we take their idea and we put the idea into it. But here's the problem. Can you see this idea? It doesn't quite fit our system. So what we generally do, and this is kind of that Charlie Chaplin thing, we do this to this idea. We take this idea and we put it in our system and we make the idea fit the current system. Now, this is referred to in the research as sustaining innovation. But what you need to understand is this: these things that we can't see happening in our system, those are the things I refer to as next practices. We cut them off. And so we never really, what we do is we improve the current system, but we don't ever change much of it because our ideas, we make them fit. So a better way of thinking about this is this way. When somebody has an idea, this is the work of a guy by the name of Clay Christensen, who wrote a book called Disrupting Class. And his point is disruptive innovation. So what you do is you put the idea into the system, but you make the system change to accept the idea. Going back on that idea, just think about it this way, right? So what did we do? We made the idea fit the system. What we want to do is take the idea and put it in the system and make it change the system. And the thing about this is referred to as disruptive innovation. And early forms of disruptive innovation are not great, right? Do you remember the first cell phone? Those of you out there that are old enough to remember the bag phone and a magnet antenna on your car? If you didn't do that, you wouldn't have what you have today in front of you, whether it's a Samsung or an Apple or anything like that. Because you get a new idea, you put it in, and then you adjust and adjust and adjust. That's how you deal with disruption. That's the role that needs to be played. That's this idea of disruptive innovation. So let me move from the idea of this crazy world we live in, the idea of leading in a world that's crazy, where you need vision, you need to deal with volatility through vision, right? And understanding, you deal with all of those issues, as I shared with you. What are some strategies that can help us in this world that is very crazy and very disruptive? And I think all of you know, I mean, clearly, like, let's face it, you all have been living in a very disruptive period of time, trying to lead an important work of our young children's care and education in their early learning. So let me share some strategies with you. It's a series of leadership factors that you have to understand. And some of these align to the VUCA world. And I'll share these six, I think I have 6 concepts for you today. And then I'm going to give you some skills you need, and then give you another strategy. So here's the point, and you heard me say this earlier. Always have a clear vision against which judgments can be made, and with agility to respond to rapidly changing situations. What do I mean by that? You know, if you have a clear vision, anytime someone has an idea, put the idea against that clear vision. Does this get us closer or not get us closer? That's what's important. That helps you screen things in and screen things out. A very important strategy that you need as a leader in this world. Another one is build a culture of change. You have to have a learning organization. Learning organizations always have to be ready to question the status quo. So I was the dean at the School of Education at Southern New Hampshire University, one of the most innovative universities in the world, actually. It was named the 12th most innovative company in the world. And here's the thing, every day as a leader, we would get up and we would get an email from the president that said, challenge the status quo today. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And that was the way we made some significant changes at the university. Why do we continue to do that? Why did we start it? Let's stop it. You have to be curious and seize the chance to innovate. Uncertain times bring opportunities for bold moves. You know, what are you seeing out there? What are things you could pilot and try? What ideas and concepts might distinguish and make you different from all the other industries, all the other programs that you see? What out there might be a great idea that you begin to launch and try in your system? Our systems aren't going to get better unless we encourage networking rather than hierarchies, collaboration rather than competition, and reach out to other systems. You know, the work I do in the K-12 system right now, we're trying to build networks of school districts across the country that are sharing their new ideas. And some people say, I don't want to share that. Well, share it. I get your new idea. I might try it a different way. I implement it a different way. We get a different result. We start sharing that information. It's absolutely critical in these uncertain times that we encourage networks rather than hierarchies. Under the concept of leadership factors, we have to get used to being uncomfortable. Resist the temptation to cling to outdated systems and ideas. Look, here's the thing. If you're going to be a leader, I tell everybody right now, get used to being uncomfortable. You're going to have a challenge between what we call polarities, continuity and change. And I'm going to give you some powerful strategies on that before we end this talk with you this afternoon. But that's an important aspect. And the 6th leadership factor here, sorry, I missed the slide. Go back. Hierarchies often cripple decision-making. Success depends in our systems on distributed leadership. Sometimes we have a structure that people in our system feel like there's 6 people ahead of me. My voice isn't going to be a good voice. We've got to stop that. We've got to look at distributing leadership. That's what's really important in this work. So those 6 leadership factors are important factors for you to consider. And all my slides, you know, take them, throw a slide up and think about it with a team, a leadership team in your system. So here's the point. We all work really hard in education. And I look at early child, I look at everything from birth to whatever as education. It's constantly educating. And we all work hard to efficiently deliver it, right? But here's what we're learning. The skill set for doing what we're doing there was a book written called the Innovator's DNA. And here's what we in our profession, we like to focus on a set of skills we call delivery skills, analyzing things, planning, detailed implementation, disciplined execution. We all think this is the way to get ahead. But here's what we learned from the book, Innovator's DNA, is this, that the transformative person, the person that really reaches and moves with the future, has a different set of skills, right? They don't accept the status quo, and they look for new and better ways of constantly doing things. And so when you put these skills side by side, right, we're all trained to do these things, delivery skills, but discovery skills are different, like questioning, why are we doing it? Observing our work and saying, why are we doing that? Networking, experimenting, and then something called associational thinking. You know, what are they doing in other countries? What are they doing in other businesses? Looking at other things outside of this. When I used to work for the Gates Foundation, I was sitting one time and Bill Gates was saying to us, what conferences do you go to, Ray? What books do you read? And I read everything in education. He said, I think you should start reading books in other professions and understand them and what changes they're making. That's a good thing for leaders when they think that through. So I just share that with you, to think about the different kind of skills you as a leader. Question your institution, right? Really sit back and observe it from a student's perspective, from a child's perspective. Are you giving the children what they need? These are important skills for you in this work that you do. So let me move to sharing with you a very powerful implementation tool. So if you do have a new idea, how do you implement it? What are the things you think about when you implement? And this slide, hard for you probably to read. I'm going to explain it, but I think that in your place of work, I know that you have some people that when you give them an idea, they're ready to do it. That's these people right here. We call them, I like to call them the golden retrievers. On here, I'm calling them the innovators. And these people are different from the other people in your employment. These people, the innovators, they love ideas, and they have a mindset that if you give them an idea, they can implement it. So when I look back at my career as an educator and running school systems and being a principal and all that, I really wish I knew this information then, because I always tried to implement something across my whole school or my whole system. And that's really not a great way to do it. You really need to start with these people, the people that like ideas. And here's the reason why. These people right here, they resist ideas because these people need to see a process for implementing it. And so what you do is you let these people begin the idea. And guess what these people do? They develop a process. These people see the process and say, oh, I get it. I see how you do it. And then they begin to implement it. Then there's another group of people right here. And these people that work for you believe what they're doing is getting the results they need, and they're not ready to do anything because these people won't change until they see results. Point blank, they need to see results before they move. These people need to see a process before they move. These people just need the idea. So there is another group that's over here that will never move. But the issue is, if you can get 90% of your people to move, this group either decides to leave or they have to conform. So implementation of new ideas you have to think differently about implementing new ideas. Now, the other part to that implementing new ideas is that in this system of yours, you have people that love innovation and people that love tradition. And I want you as leaders to understand that this is a polarity, that this is a stabilizing issue, people that want to stabilize the business, people that want to be future focused. What I'm going to share with you is this thing called polarity strategy. And I want you to understand it. This is probably the most other than the implementation process, this is one of the most useful tools in the world today, I think, because of the polarities we see. I want you to think about this. Polarities are energy systems in your system, right? They're energy systems in your place of work where you have people that are on both sides, people that like change, people that don't like change. And these people, they have good reasons for not liking change. And the people that like change have good reasons for that. And it's not an either or, it's a yes and approach. And one of the challenges here is this. It's called polarities. And so All polarities contain 2 points of view, both of which are absolutely true. I want you to look at this slide here. This side, this person sees 4. This side, this person sees 3, right? And they're both, this person's right and this person's right. You want to go about changing something, you always have at least somebody on both sides. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to make these people enemies of each other, and you don't want them to be your enemies. So what you have to do, now, just as an example, or what I think are some common polarities, we hear this a lot right now in the K-12 system: student responsibility for learning and teacher responsibility for learning. Some people say, these kids, they don't take responsibility. Other people say, teachers will say, I'm not taking responsibility because it's their responsibility. Or academic achievement and whole child development. I think in the Head Start world, you all really focus on whole child development, but I bet you get people that say we need to add more academics to this. And so these are common polarities. How do you deal with them? Here's the answers. Okay. What are people, you have to really look behind the resistance. What are people saying as they resist an initiative or a policy or a new program? What are the resistors saying? Listen to them. They need to see you listening to them. And what are they concerned about losing? And what do they value about the way things are now? Get that information, put that information down. Make sure you engage them. You as a leader also need to look at, when people are wanting to innovate, what is the difficult chronic problem you're trying to solve? What's this idea trying to solve? And what's the most exciting possibility of it? And why are some people strongly advocating and others strongly resisting it? These are conversations you need to have with the people. What are the dreams that people have about how things could be? You need to understand that. And you need to understand that because of this. Because you can't, as a leader, stereotype people. And what do I mean by that? Here's the point. We tend to make individuals or groups who see things differently containers for values we disfavor. I'm all about having this change, and the people that are resisting it, I see them as negative. You don't want to do that as a leader. You want these people to respect you and that you understand why they're resisting. We positively stereotype our own values and our own beliefs as if they have no downside. Here's what I'm going to tell you right now. I don't care what the project is you want to implement. It is going to have both positive and negative influence on your current system. You as a leader need to understand that. Continuity and change, they have positives and negative sides of this. That's where this work really is important for you to understand. And I'm kind of hoping that I didn't go through that so fast, because I really want you to understand that your ability to listen to both sides, your ability to understand why they're resisting, your understanding of why they want to implement new things, you need to let people see you as understanding both sides of this coin. That's absolutely critical. And my last point to you, before we look in the chat box and have any kind of conversations, is I want to end with this closing point in my talk about this work. And I want you to think about this, your concept of leadership. And as leaders, many of us were trained in this kind of a fashion, okay? That we collect data. We collect data as leaders, and data gives us information. And once we have this information, what happens is we synthesize it. And when we analyze that data, synthesize the data, we end up with knowledge about our current operation, our current system. That's important. Knowledge is important. But knowledge really doesn't go anywhere unless we have some experience that we apply to the knowledge. And so people that have deep experience, they look at the data, they look at the information, they look at the results, it creates knowledge, we put it in the hands of experienced people, and experienced people create judgment. Like, here's what's going on, here's what's not going on. Now, I think all of you know this. I think you know this to be true, and that is this, that out of judgment, sometimes judgment is our intuition, right? Sometimes data can say one thing and you could say, but I think we're getting this result because of something. Intuition is important. Intuition leads to innovation. I have an idea. Let's try something different. Let's see what we can do. When you get people in your system that feel like they have the ability to not just make judgments, but use their intuition, and then that intuition leads to new ideas, that creates a sense of passion in your workforce. And what's absolutely important about passion in the workforce is that it leads to people feeling they have voice. We have leaders that listen. We take all of this work here, and what this all does, when you get to this level, when you get to the point where people feel like they can use their intuition, come up with ideas, creates a sense that using my idea, I feel like I have a voice, I'm being heard. When you take all that, that's what bold leadership really is about, is being able to build a system that collects data, understands information, synthesizes, creates knowledge, give it to the experienced people to look at. They create some judgment. Then you get into the idea of, well, what should we do? Maybe we have a new idea. When they see that new idea and they start working together on it, it creates this sense of bold leadership. Look, I want you to understand as best as I can, leading today is in tough times. We're in a very challenging time. Our senses, people say, let's stabilize, get together. The problem with stabilizing is the world is moving fast. What we have to do is we have to get into the road and come up with new ideas, come up with new strategies, begin to balance the difference between continuity and change. Look at that sense of continuity and balance it. That's where you need to be. That's where, if you really want to build the Head Start programs in the future of where we start believing that we're getting our kids ready for the world they're going to live in, this is where it all happens. So with that, let's see. I have not been able to jump into the chat box, Deb. I don't know. I see 29 things in there.
Now, I've been keeping an eye on it. I don't see questions.
Okay.
I didn't know if people had, probably people are thinking, I can tell you my brain is on fire. But if anybody has a question or a scenario they wanted to run by Ray or anything like that, we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, we have some time. Give us about 15 minutes. And if not,
if we don't need it,
we'll go. But thoughts? Is anything out there that I said that either made you say, whoa, that's crazy, or this is an idea that maybe can work?
I do know one of the things I talk a lot about in leadership courses and conversations that we have is the whole idea of leveraging your leadership. And you touched on that.
Yes.
From the top down.
Yeah. And one of the most interesting things is there's a sense that our hierarchies need to be taken apart. And there's actually a lot of work that's going on. They call them shape-shifting organizations. So an example of that would be in your Head Start program, wherever you are, you have people further down the chain that have great knowledge in specific areas. And when you have those people that have that knowledge in a specific area, they should be the lead on ideas. An example of that is that when I was at Southern New Hampshire University, there was a weekend fire in one of the dorms, and they called all the leadership back to the university for the weekend. And we all arrived on it was a Saturday night, and the president was there, and everyone's looking at the president. The president said, he pointed to the director of residency and said, tell us what we need to do. And the head of residency looked at the president and said, you go to Bed Bath and Beyond and get as many blankets and pillows as you can. And then he pointed to me and said, you start calling, here's the list of all the kids that lived in this dorm, call their parents, tell them they're safe. And that director led the work because they rose to the position of authority in that area. And I think we need to do more of that in our business because, if it's an issue that might be, let's say it's a literacy issue, I was a principal. I didn't know as much about literacy and people would be staring at me. I then turned to, like my first grade teacher and say, Carol, I need help. You take the lead on this. And when we give our employees the lead on things, that's really an important thing.
So we have a question from Lisa about creating innovation in a large system. How do you do that?
I think one of the things that's a great question. And one of the things you need to do is you need to smallify it. All right. And what I mean by that is that in any big system, somebody has an idea. The term smallify, I think, is a term that we should all embrace, which is disruption. You don't want to create too much disruption in a system, particularly in a public system, a system that is, you're not in a private business. I worked for the Bain Venture Capital Group. They didn't care, right? Look, we care. You all care. You're in a publicly viewed, government-funded business. We got to smallify our ideas and launch them a little bit at a time and begin to tweak them in. And one of the things you need to do is begin, if you're leading a department, if you're a leader, and I'm going to say in a Head Start program, have a file folder. When people come to you with an idea, almost think about creating a Shark Tank in your building, in your institution. And three or four or five people that you trust have an idea put before them, and then have that group decide, how can we smallify it? How can we begin to do this work? Smallify it, launch it, see how the system reacts, and then don't throw the idea away if things aren't working. Figure out, how do you tweak it? How do you make it better? Here's the strategy you need to use. You need to use what's called, when I worked at the Gates Foundation, we refer to it as the Microsoft strategy. If you have a new idea, launch it. Listen to the people, and then launch version 2.0, and then launch version 3.0. Listen to people with the idea. How did Bill Gates become so wealthy? And right, he launched Windows 95. Listen to his customers, launch Windows 98. Listen to his customers, launch Windows 2000. Listen to his customers, and just smallify the idea. That's what's a really important piece to do. I know there's some other questions I saw.
Yeah, there are. Jasmine wanted you to just review really quickly the continuity and change.
Yeah. So the point about continuity and change is, in your system, you have people on both sides. And so if I were to go back, and let me just see if I can grab, I'll give you a better sense of this by talking about it with a slide in mind. Let me just go back real quickly. What you want to understand about continuity and change is, in your system, this slide here, all right, you have all these people in your system. You have people that like ideas, they like change, and you have people over here that don't like change, right? And when you're launching something, when you're thinking about moving something, these people here, the people here, they have good reasons not to change right away. Number one is they can't see that the process, and they don't believe it's going to get results. So what you have to do is balance continuity with change. Don't push people into things where they're not ready for it yet. So take the people that like an idea and smallify your idea so that they could try it. They do some things, and they come up with an idea of how it will work in your system. And then these people, then you'll get these people connected. And then what are the results you're getting? Compare the results from this idea to the results of the people that are currently doing something. And then if the results are better, these people will move. All right. But they have to understand that, you all understand the concept of mindsets. These people's mindset is this new thing will not get results like I'm getting. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. That's what they believe. But you've got to give them some process and some results for them to change their mind. All right. And if they're not getting good results, then throw the idea out. All right. Because it's not going to have the impact.
Do you think this slide answers Audra's question, which is, how do you get staff motivated to move beyond just doing the minimum, where you've got this sort of trajectory and you're not going to have everybody at the same place at the same time?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes, Deb. I mean, this slide, and when you get the slide, if you want to look at it, basically what it says here is innovators come in with the mindset that they love ideas, right? And they will work hard to implement it. And you need to work with those people, because you want the implementation is going to go bad. It will not work the way there's a great Made to Stick. It's a book by Chip and Dan Heath. Mm-hmm. And their point is, no plan survives contact with the enemy, right? So you can make a great plan, but once you put it into your system, the system is going to react differently to it. All right. And because of that, you need people that are willing to adjust as they're implementing, right? These people over here, these people will immediately say, I told you it's not going to work, right? You can't get these people involved until they see processes and results.
Some more predictability.
It's more predictable. And
Yeah.
and by the way, I really do wish in my career I could go back, right? I wish I knew this then, because I used to do these like, well, no, we're all going to do it, right? Not happening.
So we talked a lot about mindset in that answer. So Lisa was asking, she's maybe in a school district or works with a school district, big organizations that have very set mindsets, and you're actually fighting against a system or a structure. And honestly, every Head Start does, because Head Start is its own school district, if you will. I mean, it is. No, it is structure, right?
I have such great respect for the work they do. It's just amazing.
It's amazing. But how do you get that mindset? How can someone who's leading a Head Start program, let's say, and they're in a school system, shift mindset when, I mean, I'm assuming, Lisa, you feel like you don't have the ability to influence that in where you're sitting. Is there a way to influence up, or I don't know if that's how you think about it?
Yeah, I think you do need to, look, I work in districts all the time, the people, and when I talk to the educators in the school, they go, nobody will give us an opportunity, right? Look, they go back to the Charlie Chaplin mask. They see this as a very, they see it as no one ever listens to us. They don't give us ideas. It takes time to change the culture. So this won't happen overnight, all right? You're looking at that implementation process, you're looking at a good 3 years to move something with any kind of good response. I think what you need to think about is you need to start saying, like, what's our vision? Go back to the point of vision. What is the vision for this program, right? Where are you looking? Are you looking in the past, or are you looking out there? If you're looking out there, how are we going to get there? And then maybe find one idea that has some sense of reason and be able to influence the people up to say, look, the vision is to get here, right? In order to get there, it's very simple to talk about it. It's challenging to get to it. It sounds like in 45 minutes, I can tell you how to change the world. No, it's going to take a long time, but you have to understand that you can't make the people that are kind of anti, you can't make them enemies. You want to understand them, and they need to understand you. One of the big challenges I think we have in our lives today, in our world, in the political world, is people don't understand both sides. They just think that side's bad, that side's good. And we need to understand that. So it's a balancing act. Find a niche in those systems. I think if you build off of your vision, remember, one of the key things I said was have a really powerful vision for where you want to go, but don't have a sense of certainty about how you get there, and that's really an important aspect of this work, because you got to be flexible. It's not going to be all in one way.
Yeah. Lots to think about. You gave us a lot to think about, which I think is super as we kind of go into a new program year. I would challenge everybody who was out there listening to pick one thing. Take it back. One thing that you can do differently.
Yep. I would actually give you my first principalship in 1977. So that was a long time ago, before the internet. No, anyway, but I learned something from a board chairman who was a dairy farmer. And one night as a principal, he asked me what I was going to accomplish my first year as the principal. And I had my famous legal pad. My legal pad had like 10 things on it. And he looked at me that night and gave me one of the best lessons I ever had in any of my programs, any of my learning. He looked at me and said this. He said, Ray, if I chase 2 cows, I catch neither. And I looked at him, I said, what? His name was Martin. I said, Martin, what did you just say? He said, if I chase 2 cows, I catch neither. He said to me this, could you tell me one thing you're going to do in this school next year that's going to make lives better for some of our kids? And he was one of the most brilliant people I ever met. And he basically said to me, you can't do everything. And one of our challenges as leaders is we want to do everything. I like the word smallify. Smallify your vision. All right. What's something? How can we get closer to where that place is? And the way you do it is you have to balance being being focused on stability in your system and balance the sense of where you're going. And, by the way, I think in early childhood, I think there's so much opportunity to look ahead. And in schools, we struggle because of this, most school systems just look at their previous year's test scores and say, how do we get 3 more percentage points in our math and our reading? And we'll look better. No, you got to look ahead. Where are we taking these kids? There was a wonderful article just came out recently that talked about freelance learning. What are our kids learning outside of school that is making them better for the world they're going to live in? And kids are talking about it. They're working on it. And they say, things in school are not making me will not make me successful in the life I'm going to live in. We've got to rectify that.
Yeah. Great presentation. Thank you so much for
And I think
sharing.
you have my email. If anyone wants to connect with me, we do a lot of work with organizations and districts and be happy to.
Yeah, we will share your email. We will share
Yep.
your slides. We recorded this, folks, so we will make that available. And really excited to hear your presentation today. And thanks for everybody for coming out. I know everyone's busy. We appreciate it. And Ray, I'll follow up with you afterwards.
Hey, sounds great. I just want to say thanks, everyone, and have a great day and have a really great start to the new year.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.